Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today at the Latina Healing Institute charla on why do I always put myself last? And this is a question for all of us, right? All Latinas. I am Dr. Ana Sierra, and I am a professional counselor here in Washington D.C. And I'm here with my colleague Alani.
Yes, it's so nice to see you guys. My name is Alani Bankhead. I'm a certified professional coach and co-founder of the Latina Healing Institute. And this is the hot topic. I think this is like the $1,000,000 question that if everybody had the answer to, life would be so much easier. And so we're really excited to be here with you guys today and talk about why is it that we always put ourselves last? And we're going to talk about it in the context of being a Latina and how that influences how we behave in the world.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like it's different for us Latinas because, when we talk about like culture and gender roles, our expectations are a little bit deeper than we want to know. So the reason why we're talking about this because this is a common topic that we have been seeing in in our work, just talking to Latinas, and also our own experiences, but also witnessing our women in our family go through these experiences. So, how does this even affect us at the personal, professional level? All of the other interpersonal, marriage, kids, all of those things that are so critical to many people that want to do those things. So, let's I don't know, Lani, what do you think?
Well, I was going to say too, I think this is a really interesting time to be having this conversation because now that the pandemic is over, right, the last couple of years have really been one of a ton of upheaval for everybody. And I think people really are collectively looking at their patterns and their lives and their careers and saying, is this really how I want to live my life pre-pandemic, right? The constant hustle, being exhausted all the time. You can see even with the Great Resignation, right? There's millions of Americans are quitting their jobs because they don't want to work 90 hours a week anymore.
Yeah.
And, that is certainly a behavior that is a result of us constantly putting everybody else ahead of us first. And so this question is just really timely as far as, why don't I put myself first? And do I want to put myself first? And what does that look like if I do it? And how do I do it without alienating people around me? Or, how do I do it so I don't appear like I'm less loving or unloving? And so it's just a really good time, Anna. And I'd love to see your guys' comments. If you have questions, anything, we want to make sure that you walk away with some nuggets, some answers to help you on your healing journey.
Yeah, but what I was thinking is, why do we always put ourselves last in some ways, right? But like to think about it, let's flip it over and talk about what does it mean putting myself first means what?
Okay, so this is how I learned this the hard way. I've been working for almost 20 years, and I started my career in the Air Force, actually. I was an Air Force officer. I still am an Air Force officer. And one of our core values is actually service before self. And so everything is all about you put the job first. You are the absolute last person in line. Even when they talk about good leadership, it's always leaders eat last, right? You let everybody else go first. You're the last person. And so, there's definitely a culture of like, of course you want to appear as a good leader and all that stuff. But what I realized is that for me, over all the years, it led to some insane burnout. I actually left active duty at 12 years, which those of you who are associated with the military know that 12 years, when 20 years is the retirement and that sweet pension is like crazy. Most people don't do that. And so for me, by observing these patterns in my life, I was able to identify, oh, I was doing all of those things and I thought it was truly coming from a place of love. And I was loving the best that I could, but I was still doing it for everybody else and not because it was a natural byproduct of my heart and my intentions and who I really am. And so it wasn't until I was able to kind of make that mindset shift and recognize like, oh, I'm acting all selfless, but I'm really doing it for me. I'm doing it because I want to be loved. And I want you to tell me I did a good job. And I want you to, say like, oh, you're so selfless, Alani, right? It's like a badge of honor that we wear. Yeah. Same as overworking, right? Oh, you clocked in extra hours, 12 hours today. Oh, that's awesome. I'm the first one in and the last one out, all those things. So for me, that's what that means is taking care of me so that I can put my best out there from a place of love and not from a place of scarcity, kind of trying to fill a hole. But what does it mean for you, Anna?
So, and from my experience, putting myself first, and, when I was younger, when I was like, learning, I think that, and I'm still learning. I think this is an everyday thing. It's like the journey doesn't stop, because remember that we're programmed, like, to the core of our brains, like our developmental years, we're programmed to know that we are second to others, right? Second to men, right? So it is so hard to like even realize your own like programming if we do not actually question it all the time and think about it all the time. So I remember the very first time I put myself first, I was in my maybe my 20s, my early 20s or mid 20s, when I'm like, no, I need my own independence, my own space, my own everything. And I just felt like even the slightest comment from maybe family or friends that were like, oh, what are you doing that for? You're being selfish. That was the very first thing I heard a lot. Selfish or self-centered, or I'm like, wow, like I am not even like taking anything away from anyone. I'm just claiming my independence. And to me, that meant being labeled as selfish, because I was thinking of me. I was putting me first. I was putting my education first. I put my education first because I wanted that more than I wanted to be married, more than I wanted to have kids, right? And I still do that now to this day. So I feel the same way as I did, where I do not want to give in to pressure that I was programmed to just follow, right?
Right.
And that is like for me, and then all of this like hard stuff I got from society, really, of wow, you're gonna be alone, don't, you're selfish, why don't you have kids, you'll be a great mom. So I'm like, wait a minute, but like, am I living my life or are you living my life?
Right. No, absolutely. That so resonates on so many levels. And I mean, especially as Latinas, right? Like, I remember when I was younger, just observing all of those cultural elements. My
Yeah.
path, ever since I was probably 5, I knew I was like, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get married the day after I graduate. I'm going to have 2 kids within the next 3 years. And then, like
Yeah.
it was all about just marriage, mom, whatever. But
Yeah.
same as you, coming to a point of like, is that what I really want? And what I'm hearing you say is your values were really clear to you. Education, really, really important to you. And deep down your why as to why your education is so important to you. But I can tell you, as someone who's worked with you, you having that level of education and your PhD and all the amazing work that you do, you've brought so much healing and joy and camaraderie and inspiration to me and so many other women and other people around us, but that was because you stayed true to your value of education, which I so appreciate. And I know for me, one of my main values is to love and serve from a really wholehearted place. Like, my husband kind of jokes, he's like, oh, you're like kind of hippie-ish in that way, because I'm like, it's all gotta be from love, dude. Like, but for me, that's what I've learned in the hard spaces. And I come from a military law enforcement background where love is not a thing, but I've always known that that was how I needed to lead. And for me, putting myself first practically means I have to get enough sleep. I have to go to the gym. I have to like limit the Red Bulls and increase the tea, right? Like, there are certain practices that I need to engage in so that I can do my work from that whole loving space.
Right.
And it does take trial and error. And I've come to a place finally where, we're in the beginning, I was kind of fidgety about being that way because it's so countercultural. But now, after doing it enough, I just don't really care what other people think anymore. And I see the results in my own life. Like, the results that I get from doing it my way are more loving more productive. I mean, I honestly sometimes have people in my field that ask me, like, how have you achieved what you've achieved? And I'm like, it's all love, bro, which sounds really silly, but I mean, the point is whatever your value is, you have to identify that and put that at the forefront and fight for it, set those boundaries around it. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times in the professional environment too, like what does it mean? Like when you're saying like those experiences that you've had in the military, for us, like as a therapist or as people, like even every profession has a purpose, right? To serve others, because we don't exist in society by ourselves. So even attorneys, doctors, therapists, service, military service, people, everyone has a purpose because they want to and either serve others or interact with others. Like that's what we need. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't have a society, right? But like why is this internal, if for Latinas to think about being in a professional environment, like priorities can shift so quickly when and like the guilt, right? Just thinking about that guilt of um did I make the right choice, right? Am I just disappointing the entire family culture? Am I like I'm happy with who I am, but like you still question a little bit of that. And I can only like picture, and this is why we need community to heal, that as you get into other stages of life like marriage and children, that pressure is bigger, that pressure
Yeah,
is like, hmm?
for sure. And we've heard the term like you can have it all, right? Like, oh, you're a working woman, you can have like the perfect family, you can have the perfect career, you can be the best mom, the best wife, all those things. I think we've all kind of come to the conclusion that like it's just not possible, and that is okay, right? And however you show up, the point is letting go of your control freak self, which we all, if you're on this call, you're a control freak because you're a person of excellence. I mean, that's how we're raised, right? Especially as Latinas. Like it's you bring your best. Like even walking out the door. I mean, we've all seen the Le Juan videos, right? Like you cannot leave this house looking anything other than on point from head to
Perfect.
toe, right? And that's just leaving the house. And so I completely resonate with what you were saying, Anna. But yeah, just being able to let go of those control freak tendencies and show yourself some grace so that you are able to start walking that path to healing and again, living from a more wholehearted kind of place. And so, Anna, I'm kind of curious, like, as far as family life goes, what do you think are some ways that the women on this call maybe can use this, like in small ways, to put themselves first so that they can, be the best mom, be the best parent, and also still feel whole and loved?
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that if we don't do it, we never will, right? If we don't just get it in there in your calendar, you get it in the books, then you would never we never will, because as Latinas, we are amazing at putting up excuses as to why maybe this is not the right time, maybe this is not the right thing. But I've met amazing Latinas who are, you know, uh who are mothers who like will give their left eye for their child, but for themselves they think it twice, and they're like, well, that's not really what I'm going to do for me, because it's kind of it's a being like feeling worth it kind of thing. And even as me being a single person too, I meet a lot of single women too, that Latinas that are struggle to make sure that they're first, because we're so oriented to everybody else first so that we're okay. But remember that when we are thinking, even in psychology, self-care, everything like that, if we don't charge our batteries, then how are we supposed to charge everybody else's? In the old like metaphor of being on the plane, well, not metaphor, it's the reality of survival. If you don't put your oxygen mask first, you cannot save your child next to you. Like, do you realize how big that is? If something went off where you had to like think about who do I do first, me or the child, I think we'd be in trouble as Latinas. We'd be gone along with our children, because it's not that everybody does it, but like the instinct that we're programmed to do is to do it for others,
Right.
to go the extra mile, pay the extra tutor, the extra thing, the extra sport, the extra your class, the extra everything, so that we're giving everybody else around us the best. But when it is about you and about ourselves, we struggle with that. And I did struggle with that for a long time. I grew up in an environment where I was more we were not rich people, so I was hustling for a long time. So I know what it's like to like have to do like some crazy meals that I'm like, I was in college, I was surviving. I know what it's like to have to save money. I know what it's like to do that. So coming from that environment, like you develop these coping skills, right? How do I survive environment so that I can make it, right? And then you get to a point where you actually have already survived that and you are thriving. And how do you get yourself from realizing that? Wait a minute, I don't have to like to question whether I want to buy this for myself, or I don't have to question because I have it. I've worked so hard to get it. I have worked my butt off to get to where I am as a woman, as a Latina woman. Like, and a lot of Latinas may relate to this. Why do I question so much? If I have it, if I have the space, if I have the opportunity, why do I question this so much about whether I'm worth it to do this?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so true. And even I was just thinking about this old story from when I first came out of college. I had a little bit of debt and I got on that Dave Ramsey track. So for those of you who don't know Dave Ramsey, he's the get out of debt guy. And he has a very strict plan on how you do that. And I follow that diligently. So just like you, I was hustling. I mean, like somehow I managed to have beer money at the end of the day, but it was like I was probably not eating or something like that, right? It was really tight. But then when you do come to a place professionally where you're like, ooh, like I can let the belt out a little bit. Like I have a little bit of spending cash. Like, you start saving a little bit and all these little things. Like then all of a sudden the world sort of starts to open up. And so if you find yourself in that place today, we'd really encourage you to ask yourself, like, okay, so the world's opened up. Like, how do I want to use my money? And I know for me, it really transformed how I viewed money rather than like this thing that there isn't enough of. It became a tool that I got to start using to create the life that I wanted. And I'm not talking about keeping up with the Joneses. And again, this goes back to values. So for me, I don't care about designer handbags. I
Yeah,
don't need like the fancy car. Like,
really.
good quality stuff because I only want to buy it once, But when you realize that money, we have so many emotions with it, but once you strip all that away and see it as like, I can use this to build myself up, to build other people up. And how do I do that? All of a sudden, all these other possibilities open up for you on, well, what does that look like for me? What does thriving look like?
Mhm.
And even going back to what you said earlier about how much we pour into other people all the time, whether it's at home, like we had talked earlier about how many moms do you know out there that spend ridiculous amounts of money on like a 6-month-old birthday or a 1-year-old's birthday or something
Yeah,
like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That is
yeah,
beautiful and amazing. And
yeah,
any mom would want to do that for their kids because you want the best for your kids.
of course.
Know? And on the flip side, professionally, I know for me, like I would always put myself last. Holidays as a single woman, I worked every single one of them because the married people, got to take the time off. And at the time, I couldn't be selfish. I couldn't say, oh no, I'm taking Christmas. I'm going home to see my family. And so most Christmases, I would say that those first 12 years, I think I made it home like twice, maybe.
Mm.
And but again, coming back to, and this is my favorite question I give kind of people that I work with is, if it was your child, if it was your best friend, if it was your spouse telling you this, what
Yeah,
would you share with them? And
yeah,
the answer is always, oh my gosh, they should spend the money. They should get the help that they need. They should love on themselves. So why is it you can't do it for yourself?
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly the key question. And that's we have some comments here that we maybe want to look at. Um and let's start with the first one here, Amada, and we'll get to Alisa as well. Amada says, how do I put myself first in a new job that I've just started? I've been there.
Good question. That
So
is really good. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
no, I mean, the thing is that there is a way of the thing when we are programmed, remember we're programmed to be in other people's service, like to serve other people. So when we are in spaces where people are interacting with each other, we're the ones picking up energy that we have to be last, even in conversations. When we are not able to assertively, and professionally speak about what we need and what we want and what we will not accept, but with respect, because it's possible. We don't have to, boundaries are great for work, especially for the younger population, the younger community, upcoming um, 20s, late early 30s. They're realizing more that boundaries are something amazing at work, and it is, and you deserve them, and you don't have to ask permission to do that.
Yes, exactly. And especially like we mentioned the Great Resignation earlier, there's a lot of literature out there now talking about this power dynamic shift away from the employer to the employee, right? So people have been teleworking and now companies are requiring you to come back to work. And people are saying, like, I don't want to be in the office. Like, I don't need to be in the office. I want to telework more. I want to have flexible hours. I know for me, I do all of my best work from like 6 a.m. until about 9 a.m. And then I have another boost of energy after lunch for a little while. And that's just my natural rhythm. So
Mhm.
being able to set those boundaries and have a conversation with my boss that says, hey, you know, are you cool if I telework? Because I work best that way. You will get the best production out of me. And you might get emails from me at weird hours, or I might not be available at a certain time, but you will always get my best and you will always get what you need. And I've personally never had a problem with that. But again, that's a muscle that you have to develop and, sort of learn how to flex. But again, that comes back to your values. Like, what's most important to you? What is it you really want at the office?
Yeah.
And so being able to identify that and then articulate it. And I'll tell you another thing, especially as Latinas, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like the trend with us is because we are brown and because we are women, we already know we have to work 3 times as hard as everybody else just to
Yeah.
be the same. So on top of that, growing the little pair of like brass ovaries to ask for what you need is like unheard of for us.
Yes. Yes.
But I think what people are starting to see really is, with diversity and inclusion becoming such a big thing, people know that teams are better. All the studies show teams are better when you have diverse workforces. And guess what? You, Latina, are a unicorn, like little magical being that they want and need. And you know it too. You know that you bring incredible gifts and skills. And you know what? I'm going to say it. Like, I've traveled the world. I've been in a lot of different cultures and I know I'm Latina, but I kind of feel like we bring a special set of like love and energy to the table that nobody else does.
Yeah.
And that charisma, that heritage, it does a lot to push missions forward. And so rather than thinking like, "Oh, who am I to ask for that?" Like, "No, you are powerful and you're important." And let's flip it, right? If it was your employee coming to you asking for it, what would you say to them?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, so that's
And
just my
exactly, and they need you there. They don't. If they don't, and if they don't appreciate it there, then that's not the space for you. That's it.
100%,
That's it.
100%.
I kind of wanted to go a little bit over one of the things, and I think it goes with the next comment we're going to look at. Alyssa says, I think we deal with pressure to be best mom, best at work, best wife. It's fully ingrained to the best of everything, and it's hard to keep up, and we don't always receive the recognition and to keep going. We try our best with little to no recognition, but we tell ourselves it's okay because everybody else is happy. That's an amazing point. You know what? The problem with putting everybody else's needs first before your own is that in our culture, in Latin, in in this Marianismo, we are taught that if we behave this way, we're good girls. It's all good. We're okay. You're such a good girl. And we know what praise does to a child feeds self-esteem. So when we grow up in spaces where we're told, if you're a good girl and you behave this way, you're worth it and you're great and you're amazing. Kind of like going back to the point that you said, Alani, when you were in your single days, you were like, well, the married people deserve that day off, but I don't. Is it because like we feel like if we don't meet those expectations, being married, having kids, we're less worth it? I struggle a little bit with that too. Like not in my own like self-esteem as a, oh, I don't think I'm worth it. It's more of like, wow, do people really see this thing? And this is the way that they see it, right? Because I'm asked many times, what do you want to have kids? Like, what do you want to, like, why is this question even like a question for me?
Yes, 100%. And, bringing it back to Alyssa's point, so she even says, like, we try our best with little to no recognition.
Mhm.
Like, and there it is, right? Is that Marianismo? Actually, Anna, before I forget, can you explain what Marianismo is for the people who it's their first time with us?
So Marianismo is this set of rules that we subconsciously, follow, and they are taught to us in a very explicit ways and implicit ways growing up. So even a little girl that is babbling or whatever, or saying a word or trying to say a word. Oh, you're such a good girl. Look at her. She's gonna be so great at this, and we're already assigning these gender roles. Or wow, she's so beautiful, she's gonna break a lot of people's hearts. Or we're already assigning this idea that this child has a purpose that you want them to have. It's not really what the child is really, it's like just babbling or like beautiful. But it is our programming that has these set of rules of our place in the world in relation to men.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Thank you, Anna. And yeah, as Latinas, right? And so with Alyssa's comment, of like, we bust our butts and we don't get recognized for it. That is exactly the issue of that hustle culture of I have to do and perform in order to be deemed worthy, except that you are worthy just for being, which I know is such a wild concept. I think it took me a
Yeah.
couple years to like fully wrap my head around that one. But then the question becomes, well, how do I know I'm worthy, and how do I recognize myself, and how do I get that need filled? Because of course we're human, like we need feedback, we need to know that we're loved and accepted, and all of those amazing things. But again, bringing it back to pouring out from that full place, right? So imagine if you don't need that recognition, if you recognize yourself as, no, I am awesome because I love others and I want to serve and I engage in these amazing missions. And I'll tell you, Alyssa on her own is a little badass because she does lead with love, right?
Yeah.
But she always puts that front up, just like we all do, right? Like, oh, everything's fine, we're all
Yeah.
fine, kind of thing. But what would it look like for us to be able to already show up as whole individuals who don't need that validation? Imagine how much more powerful you're going to be, because you're jumping off a springboard into even more action and energy that produces better results, rather than a place of scarcity of like, oh, I did something, can you please tell me I did a good job? And I certainly, like, I mean, I think I spent the first at least 10 years of my career doing that, is seeking that validation, which is why I got so burned out. And, part of the reason why I ended up leaving active duty is because I just couldn't give myself anymore in that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great point.
So getting into that's a really good way of seeing it. Where do we get our validation or self-esteem from? Do we want to live an entire life of thinking, wow, I'm only good enough because I'm a good mom, I'm only good enough because I'm a good wife, I'm only good enough because I have achieved these like social things that I need to be doing as a Latina? But like subconsciously that happens. And I've dealt with with the Latinx community for 16 years, and many women that I see in my therapy services, they wonder like, wow, I felt like I was just like a robot walking through life. Like I got married because it was the next thing, I got kids because it was the next thing. It wasn't really an intentional, thought of saying, wait, do I really want this? Do I really, it's a programming that we have, and it's hard to break, because even if you question it, if you work on it a lot, the moment you're aware of how deeply it's ingrained in you, the more you realize, wow, I still make decisions based on that. Putting
Absolutely.
other people. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And exactly what you're saying about, what is the first step to getting over that so that you can put yourself first is creating that awareness around it. So, and I know for me, the model I like to share is thoughts lead to emotions, which lead to behaviors. And so in your body, if you're feeling that resentment and that anger, I know I have, that is my first clue to stop and say, like, okay, I'm like getting burned out, or I'm starting to get burned out and I'm tired. And I said I would do this, but I'm starting to feel like I really don't want to. And I'm starting to resent it. Like, what's going on there? And then eventually, if I get curious enough, I'll come to the awareness of, oh, I only said yes to this because I
Yeah.
wanted them to like me, or, they caught me off guard and I didn't have a chance to think about it. I could have circled back and said, you know what? I looked at my calendar. I'm so sorry. I want to support, but I just can't right now. But the point is, creating that awareness is the first and most powerful step to being able to overcome that fear barrier of being able to put yourself first. And so, um, Anna, do you have any tips, or like what works for you as far as creating awareness around all that?
I think it's just really have a more in-depth like knowledge of the how this entire role has affected our way of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Because I tell you something, when I was 14, when I came to this country, in my head, in my tiny 14-year-old head, I was worried that I was gonna hit 18 and not get married and have kids. I was 14, my goodness, like born and raised in Honduras. I mean, that's the programming I got. And then I realized here, wait a minute, this is not everything that there is.
Right.
Let me and then I went the opposite route, where I'm able to say, no, I don't want this, even though society really wants me to have this. I'm gonna decline this thing. And also not feel guilty about not having a desire to be a mom. I don't have that desire, and I love kids. I'm a child therapist. But like, I don't the thing is, putting myself first doesn't make me selfish, and I've accepted that. I've learned with that. I walk with that. I have swayed with that, and I don't have to give people explanations about why I do the things I do. I think when we start getting that power back and saying, you know what, if and that's the thing, me as a single person, right? It gets more complicated, I think, when people have children or when they're married, because then you have this responsibility to others that you know is there. So I see a lot of parents with the great intentions to say, hey, I'm doing good because my child gets straight A's. And like, but what about you? What about you? Your child academically is doing fine. You're feeling secure in that, but like, what about the emotional part, and what about your own healing? What is distracting you from that? Is this something that just gives you that boost of self-esteem for that moment because you're a good mom? But that's not the only thing you are. That
Yeah.
you're not just a wife, you're not just you are you on your on your own.
Yes. Yes. Oh my goodness. There's like so many things I want to follow up on. To go back actually to something that you'd said earlier about, obviously like the Marianismo and all the requirements that culture, whether it's Latino or otherwise, puts on us. But there's also an element too of when you're really clear about your values and who you're supposed to be and what your path is, when someone projects themselves onto you, right? So, oh, you're how old and you're not married and you don't have kids? Like, you have the choice to be offended by that or to be bothered by it, or you can set the boundary and say, like, I'm not going to let other people's opinion of me matter, right? Or one of my favorite sayings is, your opinion of me is none of my business, right? And kind of the concept of,
So yeah.
right, you decide whether or not you want to be offended by what other people are saying. But again, that's another muscle that you need to work on. And so the first time, like you get that kind of little like fiery arrow your way and it hurts. But then the more you kind of practice that consciousness of, okay, like that's their problem, that's not my problem, you do come to a point where you're like, oh, boo, I'm happy. Like, because I can do bottomless mimosas on Saturday and you can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And that's the thing, you know. I don't think there's one way or one lifestyle that is, but everybody chooses their way, right? Whatever they do. And I definitely think there's beauty in being married, there's beauty in being having kids. It's not everybody's path, you know.
absolutely.
So like just taking that into like in and then Amada says negotiation or boundary drawing is often made to feel like disobedience. Yeah, because then you're not a good girl. You're not a good girl. You're not putting other people first. And that is, it feels that way. I understand that it feels that way, but is it that way though? Just because it feels like it doesn't mean it is that way.
Right. And so, what if you reframed it and rather than feeling like you're being disobedient, negotiation and boundary drawing is about saying, there's a line here. And outside of that line, I don't feel safe. I don't feel loved. I don't feel appreciated. And so when you look at it that way, now it becomes, well, the person that is telling me I'm being disobedient actually is demonstrating to me that they love themselves more than they love me. Whereas everybody on this call, if you're on this call, it's because you're a loving, amazing human being who wants to improve themselves and live a really joyful, happy, fulfilled, powerful life, right? You're here for all the right reasons. You would never do that to somebody else. If somebody else tried to negotiate or set a boundary, you'd be like, oh my gosh, yes, we'll make this work. Like, how can we create a win-win? How can I serve you? What do you need? I love you. And you deserve the same back. And so whether it's work or, you know, family life, and family can be really hard with setting boundaries and whatnot. But the point is, over, you know, time and trial and error, you figure out how you can do that for yourself, because what you're also teaching other people is how to treat you. And that's a really important part, because the more you set those boundaries, the less they're going to come at you because they know that you're a hard target. So
exactly. They know they can't mess with you, like they say. Alyssa had mentioned earlier here in a comment that I think it says, I think my theory is be the person you need for others when you were in that situation. That's, I think, like the entire millennial community.
Yes.
So, yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry, Anna.
Yeah, I think it is, you can be the person that you needed when you were in that situation, and also at the same time you can honor the person that you are, so that you do not put even that person's needs first other than your own, because in reality true boundaries are set when we take care of us first and then others, right? Because we'll have that energy to do that. We'll have that, you know, that fuel to do that.
For sure. And I also really love this. This has been a theme, I think, that's been popping up a lot lately, especially, again, going back to that context of now the pandemic's over and people are starting to really wonder, you know, especially in the face of death, right, with COVID, like, how do I want to live my life? What's my life purpose? What am I here to do? And Alyssa, what you're also kind of pointing to is this idea of like, how do I take the suffering I experienced and turn it around and use it as a tool to help other people heal and help the world heal? And that is like one of the most important questions that we should all be asking of ourselves is, who did I need back in the day when I felt alone, when I felt crushed, when I felt despair? And go be that person. And you guys know, if you've had the joy and the privilege of being able to experience an interaction with somebody where they are able to learn from you and, not experience the same level of suffering and pain that you did, you're like, oh, like,
Yeah.
it was worth it. Like my pain didn't go to waste. I can channel that. And that's what we're here to do, right? And that's our Latina flavor is how hard we love on people. And
Hmm.
yeah, I love it. So thank you for sharing that, Alyssa. That is really powerful.
Yeah. And it's a good point because like healing is a journey, not a quick fix. And when we created like this space of the retreat, I we know that we know it's not a fix at all in 3 days. It's not a, come here and then come leave out. Many retreats that I've, out there do that. They're like, oh, have a life, a life experience that you will never forget, and you'll become rejuvenated, and you're always gonna feel like this thing that you're gonna have, and like your life is gonna be blossoming after that. The reality is that healing, even in therapy, in psychology, is an ongoing process. It's a journey, and it has ups and downs, right? But how awesome it is that if when those ups and downs, the especially the downs come out, you can still have the tools to bounce back quicker, because we do believe that we heal in community. I definitely think, therapy is amazing. I do therapy. I advocate for therapy. That's one part of you that's being addressed. Then you have your spiritual, your physical, your other aspects of you, and bringing that all of that together in one shot. That is the value here, where it's not something that's going to change your personality or change, the way that you see the world, but it's going to change the way that you think about your own beliefs and values and walk in a way that is more authentic to you.
Yes, for sure. And so, speaking of being the person you needed for others when you were in that situation, this is kind of the type of question that we designed the retreat around at the end of the day, right? It's a beautiful mansion in the middle of wine country. It has its own private lake. And back in the day, old me would have really struggled with, investing that kind of money in myself. But the reason why we chose a really kind of like amazing, pampering experience that is run by Latinas for Latinas. You have a Latina yoga instructor, you have a Latina personal chef, you have us. It's poolside, there's a jacuzzi. Like, I mean, we really pulled all the stops out because the point is for you to decide and to receive all of the amazingness that you lavish on everybody else. We're doing this for you guys because you deserve it. And also for you to come and build that community of other women who say, oh my gosh, I experienced that too, right? That unique microaggression that only Latinas can experience, that other cultures can't, right? To
Yeah.
hear other people's stories. One-on-one therapy, counseling, coaching is amazing, but there's something really powerful about group experiences because you're hearing someone else share their story and all of a sudden it clicks for you that, oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
dealt with the same thing. And you can only get that from a group experience. And so that's why we want to spoil
Mhm.
you guys on this one. This is why we didn't go cheap, because you're not cheap. You are filet mignon. You deserve all the best. And so we're really excited to put this on, and we're really excited to partner with other Latinas to make this possible. So
And like just if you are in a space where you are not sure because of something, but you know that it's not even about this, of course, if you're in a financial struggle, don't do it. Because you need to take care of that first. But if you're in a space where like I did, I hustled. I ate ramen noodles, I did all that, and then like I'm now in a space where I'm like, wait a minute, I'm okay now, it's fine, why am I not doing the things I want to do for me? And that is where you have to look at this. I like this comment about Amada that said here. I'm just gonna put it in. She says, "I do that too. A 10-year-old mother would be proud of you," kind of thing. And I want to ask like people, what would like 10-year-old older you would be proud of you being? What would be that 10-year-old of you? So when I think about it, like 10 years from now, would I have been, thanking myself for doing this for me, for nobody else, just for me, nobody else's business, just me. Um, is this experience gonna stick around that long? I'm not. We'll see. We need to see where those opportunities are and how to seize those opportunities. But would 10-year, older me be like, you know what? You saw that opportunity and you went for it. Good for you because you love you and I love you and that we're here now, 10 years from now.
Heck yeah. Yeah. You're so right. And just to kind of close things out for you guys, just remember that at the end of the day, there's only ever been one of you. There will only ever be one of you. You have amazing work to do here on earth. And time is a finite resource. So if you're struggling with your healing journey or you're not where you necessarily want to be in life, just remember that the things that keep us stuck, the fear, doing the same things over and over again, expecting a different result, do something to shake yourself out of that rut so that you can get back onto the path of doing the thing that you want to do, and just trust the process, which I used to hate hearing, but your healing journey is yours and you're going to do it no matter what. Nothing can stop you from achieving the thing that you're striving for. And so just know that we're really proud of you guys. And this is why we put these charlas on, is because we love you and we want to pour into you and encourage you on your journey. And if you did get a nugget or two out of this, we'd love to hear about it. It's just really great feedback for us. And so, yeah, thank you guys for letting us spend a little bit of time with you tonight. And I wasn't sure if there was anything you wanted to add.
No, thank you. And please, if you believe, okay, this is something that's amazing, share it with other Latinas that you know. Send it to your network of people. We are the next retreat is June 3rd to the 5th, and we're excited about having you there, sharing time, and also like give this opportunity to others. Share it, share it, share it. So thank you for having us here today, and we look forward to the next one.
Love you guys.
Bye.